Hello, sorry I'm late.
No, just in time.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Somehow I misplaced and now I'm trying to transfer it to my office computer, and I can't open my office computer. So, okay, that's going to be the night it is. Um, so, hello, Christine. I haven't met you before. How are you? Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Oosterhoff. As I mentioned just before you joined, I think I'm having a lot of difficulties with my computer today. So my mute and unmute button, it takes a long time to think. So just give me a few moments. If it
Well, I
doesn't
think
seem like I'm responding, it's just because my computer is thinking. But I can confirm that we do have quorum and we are live streaming now. So if you would like to begin the meeting, I'll turn it over to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Christine, and welcome as our committee clerk for the Rural Advisory Committee. Great to have you here and look forward to working with you. Nice to see everybody. Hope you've had a good summer. It's still officially summer, but definitely moving towards fall. So we will get started on tonight's meeting at 6:01, if that could be noted, and I'll call this meeting to order. And we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. If I could have someone make a motion to approve the agenda. So moved by Councillor Oosterhoff, seconded by Councillor Amos. And any discussion? Yes.
sorry, but
Ooh, can't hear you, Gary.
sorry about that. I did hit it.
Yep.
Yes, Madam Chair, and through I talked to the clerk this morning, and she indicated that I need to make mention if I wanted to add a couple of items onto further business at the end, just for information.
Okay. Other business. So you're
Yes.
making, what are you adding at this point in time? Just making.
Yes, a couple of rural events that I would like to bring before rural advisory. I understand we can't have questions, but I just would like it to be something that we have at a follow-up meeting. But I would like to add that as for information for us.
Okay. So Councillor Oosterhoff is adding 2 items under the agenda item number 10, other business. Since Councillor Amos had sort of seconded the approval of the agenda, is that friendly to you, Councillor Amos? Okay, thank you. So we have a mover and a seconder, noting that there are 2 items to be inserted in the other business section of the agenda tonight. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. Do we have all please show hands in favor? Opposed? Okay, Jacqueline, if you could put your screen on, just, or at least maybe I'm missing the your raised hand, just to make sure we've got you included in the vote.
Yes, in favor. I'm just en route. We'll be turning on a camera in about 5 minutes.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you and welcome. Thanks so much for getting here. I appreciate that. Okay, agenda item number 3, confirmation of the minutes. So you received the minutes in last week's package sent from Clerk O'Connor. Could I please have someone approve the minutes of the Rural Advisory Committee meeting number 03-2023 that was held June 5th? So moved by Councillor Amos, seconded by Charles Foreman. Discussion, please. Okay, seeing none, I'll call the vote that the minutes of the June 5th, 2023 meeting be approved. Show of hands. And those opposed? Seeing none, and that is carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest prior to the meeting getting started. Any business? Do we have any disclosures of that at this point in time? Seeing none, we'll move on then as well. Okay, delegations. Do we have any delegations this evening that we know of, Clerk O'Connor?
No, we do not. Through you, Madam Chair, we do not have any delegations this evening.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 6, briefings. A, Tracy Snow, welcome back, Rural Economic and Community Development Manager. And here she will start with her presentation, Q3 2023 update. The floor is yours, Tracy.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad you could all attend. Very much appreciated for your time on a Monday evening and a busy fall for all of you. I'll keep this quick, so please, next slide. So this is an update for Q3 on the work that we're doing out of the Rural Economic and Community Development Office. I'll leave questions to the end if that's okay, and I'll go through the slides just to talk about what you've received already in the agenda and in the report, and then please ask as many questions as you can or want at the end of this piece. So first of all, community training farm update. Very successful second year of operations. We're building out the business plan. Haven't started it yet, but doing some research to build out the business plan for future years as a more permanent site and more permanent role for a longer term revenue generating opportunity. Looking to create a working group to support the ideation and purpose for next steps and the future success of the program, and really looking for your thoughts at today's meeting to really discuss what that could mean to you, how we get involved, building that network to help me with the business planning so that we can look at a future success. Media event was planned. It was planned for middle of September, and the Skills Development Fund group out of Ontario had asked us to delay it. We're not sure why. They didn't give us a reason, but we haven't rescheduled that date yet, but we will. I just also to let you know, there was $216,000 that have been allocated by the Skills Development Fund towards the program this year. Next slide, please. The Kingston Public Market. So the rural office myself oversees the Kingston Public Market, where Loving Spoonful is the operator on behalf of the city. We were hoping to have farmers market designation earlier. It looks like it's going to be Q1 of 2024. There's a joint collaboration, as we've talked about in the past, from a marketing perspective with all the markets. So I work really closely with Memorial Center Farmers Market and the Kingston Public Market to try to collaborate and do marketing. We are doing some marketing within the city of Kingston to support both markets. We've also had many discussions with the Frontenac Farmers Market, the Sharbet Lake Farmers Market, and the Wolf Island Farmers Market. And what we've decided from Frontenac and the city of Kingston is to do some collaborations starting early spring of next year, where we really highlight all 5 farmers markets as a regional effort and really promote food and local food from a farmers market standpoint regionally starting next spring with marketing campaigns. And I'll get to update you a little bit more on that in their December meeting. Loving Spoonful, their contract is offered for renewal as of December 31st, but contract negotiations start October 1st. I'm awaiting a report from them that will speak to the work that they've done, the expectations that we had in the existing contract, and options moving forward. Next slide, please. Samsung Community Benefit Fund. So we did a public engagement with the Samsung Community Benefit Fund. We sent you actually a copy of the results. Amazing results, 215 contributions. I'd like to put together a working group for this as well to evaluate and narrow down suggestions, ideas, look at all of the ideas that came and were generated. The communications department and myself, based on some of the recommendations that you had given me in past meetings, we discussed about, do we have limited questions? Do we have specific questions to the public? Or do we just ask one question? You know, what would you do if we had extra funding to support rural Kingston and rural Kingston initiatives? And I'm really glad that we kind of kept it broad, because I was hoping to get open responses, very positive and negative, and also honest responses in terms of what they see for our community. You did receive the results as part of that. I don't think tonight's meeting is a place to be talking about all of those incredible results, but I think we have an opportunity to put a working group together, looking for your thoughts, to narrow down those themes and those opportunities, gaps, and ways that we could be moving this forward. I'm looking for your thoughts on this, please. The other piece that I think I've mentioned in the past is I'd like to be able to, without risk, obviously, so this is not like investing like a like a stock, but I would like to be able to possibly, depending on the projects that we've all determined and council approves, leverage funds from the grant, or excuse me, from the fund with a grant. So right now we're getting approximately $92,000 a year from the Samsung Group for the initiative. It would be really great if we could maybe bump that up to say $150,000 or $180,000 for specific projects that we've decided to do. And that's really easy if we have leverage money that we could leverage as matching money towards a grant without, again, compromising the existing money, the existing fund. But that's still something to discuss within that working group. Next slide, please. My apologies. Sorry, go back to the last slide. Currently, there's about 368,000 in the existing fund from 2022. And we'd be adding about another 92,000 for 2023 to that fund, as that the existing fund that's just sitting there that we've also talked about water access and the water access park. Again, looking for a working group to help figure that out, please. Anyway, sorry, next slide. Next slide. Commercial kitchen training days. We started in February with the launch of commercial kitchen training days, where we had a whole day event and taught people about food regulations, opportunities, retailers, restaurants who are interested in local food and how to make local food, our local commercial kitchens that have access to making local food and what that looks like. We're doing a scale-up event in November. So my goal is to have a February, starting a new food business, making food, what does that look like? And then in the fall, early winter, having a wrap-up, like scale-up event. So every year I would like to have this happening. And so on November 10th, we're having at the Kingston East Community Center as a scale-up event, including all the regulators. It will be Kingston Public Health, or excuse me, KFLA Public Health. We're going to have OMAFRA, Canadian Federation, CFIA, so Food Inspection Agency, South Frontenac, retailers, grocery chains, to talk about what does it mean to build up your existing food production business and how do you reach new customers in that realm, and also selling outside of the province as well. So it's first step was February, how to start the business, what the regulations, what the opportunities look like. Second phase in November is to talk about, let's scale up. What does that look like? Let's talk to some of the larger retailers. We're hoping to bring Loblaws in, Sobeys, Costco to have chats with us as well, and also some of our larger retailers within the area. Next slide, please. I initiated a local food survey with the communications department. I've been hearing a lot about food, a lot about where food comes from, trying to work with our farming community, our restaurant community, our retail community, our residents, what they mean, what local food means to them, whether it's newcomers, existing residents. And so we did a local food survey. So you received a copy of the local food survey itself. Unfortunately, the report isn't quite ready yet. We have the results of the report, but we haven't really finalized and kind of streamlined the report in terms of themes and ideas that look similar. 880 people were engaged in completing the survey, which I think is phenomenal. And some amazing results came back, and not surprising results. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to share those results with you after this meeting. And then I would really like to work with some of the internal departments to talk about what that could look like. Talk about how we could use that information, that data, those results in supporting our local food initiatives. The other piece that was really important was about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, looking at the new strategic priorities from council. There are many places within the strategic priorities that talk about food security, food sovereignty, food initiatives, food partnerships, but there isn't anything in the strategic priorities, and respectfully, that just isn't geared to, okay, so we need to collaborate everybody together and talk about food. So I spoke to our CAO and my director, and I said, I think we need to be pulling together our internal departments to talk about what does food mean based on the strategic priorities? What does food mean to our community? What does food mean from the city of Kingston and all of the partners that we work with? So partners, whether it's food security with Lionheart and the Loving Spoonful and our food bank, what does food sovereignty mean and food mean to our farmers and our food producers? And so we had our very first meeting this morning with the new director, officially new director of community development and wellbeing starting January. It's Ruth Norgard. Sorry, Derek, my apologies. With Ruth Nordegraff. The data office, our Rec and Leisure department, and the climate action office to collaborate efforts all related to the strategic priorities so that the city of Kingston is not just each department who's touching food are not working individually on touching food. We are actually working collaboratively to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts, we're not overlapping resources, and we're working together and then bringing in our community partners who are also touching food to make sure we're all on the same page in different categories. Again, so food related to farming and food production is very different than food related to social services and housing, but we still are touching food. So we're all actually internally working collaborative. First meeting today, which I was so excited about, and looking at doing more meetings after that. And then her role, Ruth's role, starts in January, and working closely with her to build that out and have all the departments involved. I think the local food survey is also going to support our local food markets, our Farmers Market Memorial Center, and then our Kingston Public Market, and working with them, both of them closely, to help support what does food mean to our community and how do they build that out at the Farmers Market and the Kingston Public Market to support our vendors, build out our vendors, and then support our community as a whole. Next slide, please. The Kingston Rural Perspectives webpage. So in our last meeting, and I think the meeting before, you talked to me about how rural Kingston, the rural office and the city of Kingston don't talk about what we do in rural Kingston. We don't ask what we do in rural Kingston. So we've actually created a Kingston Rural Perspectives webpage. You just have to literally Google Kingston Rural Perspectives. It'll come up. And the page is geared, so there's two links to the page. First link is for rural residents, and the second link is for rural businesses and firms. Each link offers different questions, and you submit your answers to those questions, and then they come to us. And we're building out that over the next few months to see what our rural community, both business and residential and firms, are looking at. So we're trying to understand, we're supporting communications to our city departments and letting the residents and business know that we want them more involved. We want them to hear the projects that we're doing, but we also want to hear how they want to be told about those projects. So it's not just about, here are the things that we're doing, what are the things you want us to be doing, but also how do you want to hear us doing it for you? And I'm really excited about that. That was just launched a few weeks ago, and I'm looking forward to the results on what that could be. So have a look at that page. If you have any questions, just give me a call at another time and I can go through it with you. Next slide, please. Rural tourism opportunities. So we have a few. Just briefly, I was in the RTO 9, so the Rural Tourism of Ontario Section 9 summit on Friday in Kingston, and I was able to speak on one of the panels about rural tourism and opportunities in rural tourism. So I felt really privileged to actually be part of that and talked a lot about what the city of Kingston is doing in terms of rural tourism and our partnerships as well. So Open Farm Days, as I've talked to you about, was a partnership between the city of Kingston and Frontenac County. We launched it officially on Friday, September 1st, the beginning of the long weekend, but we had amazing results. Councillor Ustroff was there as well, and I was able to speak, and Councillor Ustroff was able to speak about our contribution and our partnership with the County of Frontenac and the City of Kingston in supporting farming over a 6-week period. So I've been speaking to you about that before. It's the launch of many farm events in Kingston and Frontenac with tours and events that are happening on farms over a 6-week period. And the Open Farms Harvest event is the wrap up to that 6-week Open Farm Days event. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, my apologies. Can we go back one more second? My apologies. So I just also want to highlight that Sun Harvest Greenhouses, Community Training Farm, Memorial Center Farmers Market, Collective Joy, and the Kingston Area Seed Initiative are also part of the Open Farm Days events. Thank you. Next slide. So the Open Farms Harvest event, I did a pilot last year. Everybody thought I was crazy. I booked all of City Hall and Market Square for a period of 3 days. And we ran this event with 100 participants, 6 restaurants at the time, 6 beverage companies, a band, demonstrations inside, and knock on wood, beautiful weather. We're doing it again this year on October 14th. City Hall, Market Square again, 1 to 4:30. There'll be 8 restaurants, 8 beverage companies this time. A band, demonstrations all afternoon with food sharing, farms and chefs and owners of beverage companies as well. All of the site is going to be decorated in a fall setting. We're doing 150 tickets this year instead of 100. And all of our marketing campaign has started this week. So marketing is everything. We did a news release that was launched this morning. We have posters and rack cards that are being distributed all around the city and also all around Frontenac County. Our event pages at the City of Kingston, the FrontenacOpenFarms.ca, and the Get City of Kingston Get Ticket page all have all of the information on it already. We're starting our social media campaign this week, and Tourism Kingston, Frontenac County, and other partners are sharing that. We're sharing the social media package with all of our participants for the Open Farms Harvest, so the restaurants and the farms and the vendors, so that they can share it with all of their group. We're doing email banners. We have something like 40,000 email, an email list of approved email participants that we're sending an email banner out to with regard to the event. And we have programs and signage at the site as well. So really, really excited about this event. Otter Creek Kitchen, Aquaterra, Olivea, Black Dog Tavern, Ms. Bayo, Bread and Butter, Belong Charbet Lake, and even CFB Kingston, their food trailer with their head chefs are going to be actually cooking food and demonstrating food at the event. We have McKinnon Beer, Huff Estates, Skeleton Park, Harrowsmith Brewing, and Clausen Chase, plus Daft Brewery. And we have 2 non-alcoholic Haymakers Coffee and Limestone Creamery participating this year. Next slide, please. I was approached by the Heritage Office about a month ago, looking at doing some collaboration between the Rural Community Office, my office, and also the Heritage Department. And then we were talking about maybe doing a rural cookbook. So we're just doing some discussions right now about what that rural cookbook is like. What is in the cookbook? What are the recipes? Do we use local farms? Are there recipes from, communities that have been around a long time, communities that, we're not sure yet. So we're just having discussions. I'm looking for any engagement at all and any suggestions from from all of you, to support us with that initiative. I had spoken, about a year and a half ago about doing a bike event, and just the time perspective, I wasn't able to do it on my own. We have a lot of the research done already in terms of doing an event, so we're looking at bringing that back. And I have a number of departments within the City of Kingston that have offered to support that and what that could look like. And I'll keep you posted on that piece as well. And now it's time for questions. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Tracy, for that comprehensive report. And now I open the floor to questions, unlimited questions from the committee. But before we start, can I just please check with Clerk O'Connor? Are there any members of the public here? I didn't ask that at the beginning.
Through you, Madam Chair, there are no members of the public at the moment.
Okay, please advise if that changes at any point in time. Okay, thank you. The floor is open for your questions. For Tracy. I recognize you, Councillor Oosterhoff.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'll kick it off, and that way it gives everybody a little bit of time to put some thoughts together. Thank you, Tracy, and really enjoy working with you too, Tracy. And as you mentioned, the Open Farms event was, I just want to share it with this, this committee, because it was quite inspirational to me. I went up to 4 hours early, so in Harrismith, and I realized I had my time wrong, so I came back at 4, and it's always good for a drive to Harrismith. So it was really excellent, great people, and really good energy there, and it's really something that I know that we're going to find continued success in, as you meet so many farmers and growers and participants, and we'll see that in also in the Memorial Center. So I'm learning a lot here too. I want you guys to know that. I don't know exactly how all this works, Tracy, and I think this committee really would needs to, you know, just get involved and enjoy some of this. And maybe most of you know more than me, which is great. So I might ask a few dumb questions, Tracy, because I'm still trying to keep up. But one of the things related to the the training firm, I do support a working group on all the categories you talked about, and we could talk maybe about how they would be well, membership. What does that look like? It is a good one because I want this community to know that really a success would be that graduates or those who have received the training and have accomplished what it can be learned. They could now begin to work in the agricultural sector. Is that correct, Tracy? And how do we measure that? And would we hear success stories? Would you be collecting that? I just would like to know the committee how we can celebrate that, and will we see the data of that? I think it's a good thing because I know the industry, agricultural industry, which I am part of. I'm sure they're and I can ask Charles. Do you need the experience? You know, are we doing the right things to bring more people into employment?
So if I can just answer first, and then Charlie, if you want to have some input. So a couple of things on that. The community training firm is in its second year, especially with the business planning piece this year for more permanent opportunity, is really creating answers to a number of things. And Charles and I have talked about this before a couple of times, and I've talked to quite a number of farms as well. I am not a farmer, and that's not my job. I've never been a farmer, but I've worked with farms for over 15 years. And I really see the need and demand for employment opportunities for farmers to have staff so they can diversify and expand their farm options. I really see opportunities where our farming community is respectfully aging and don't have a succession plan for people that will take over their farms or buy their farms or gradually integrate into their farms so that they can retire and the farm continues to be operating. We don't have a lot of options. And, you know, my 2 years with the city of Kingston, amazing enough, and my, 12 plus years with Unaxanted County, specifically rural, I see a lot of that. And so I'm really hoping that the community training firm with a partnership focus, everybody involved, farmers talking about what their needs are, other partners like MAFRA talking about what they can do to support us, other regional groups. I was at an economic development conference last week in Ottawa and talked to other economic developers in Eastern Ontario who are just struggling to fill those gaps as well in terms of employment and succession planning. So my goal is for the training firm is to have a longer term training option to support our farming community with their support and with their guidance. This has to be a collective decision, collective business plan. If that's, and the data and the results. So I'm not sure how we do this, but so we have as part of our grant with Skills Development Fund Ontario, we actually have a reporting mechanism in place where we report to them every couple of months with what's happened on the farm, how many participants there are, what jobs they're finding, what are they learning. We actually do a full reporting system. So Derek, I'm not sure how we share that. It's something you're going to have to inform me of, but I'd be happy to share that document with you. It's a public document. It goes to the province. And then that way you could see the results as well as what's happening on the farm from the Skills Development Fund standpoint, not for the future stuff that we're talking about. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that gives us some more, through you, Madam Chair. I apologize for that. That helps. Good. So we will continue to follow that and learn more about that. Thank you. So the Samsung engagement, I applaud that too, Tracy. I think that a working group would help bring this to, to give us the top 5, top 3, whatever, where we can direct funds to, so that we can honor that that fund and see the results in the rural area. I mean, it seems that it is actually more important than we realize, and it is important to realize the benefits of that fund for us. So I would applaud that, and I hope that one of us as counselors, or we both, could be ad hoc to that. That would be important to me. Again, I like the collaborative approach to commercial kitchens. Again, it's outside of my expertise, but I wanted to make a comment. I really applaud that you are getting to know the partners in this. They know food, like Lionheart. Okay, it is their gifting. Okay, you speak to the directors there and the people that matter. They will. What I really want this community to know is that is so important, that the right people speak into it, because they will help you be successful. They will let you know what is a waste of time and what isn't. It's the real world they're dealing with. And I just want to say, and Don and Councilor Amos knows this too, I applaud that the past, I don't know, 2 strategic plans, count 3 probably now, with the city, that we have food sustainability as a priority for this city. And I applaud that. I think Kingston's way ahead of the game of other cities, but we have so many we'll call them streams, and we need to really need to capitalize on that. So, and that it's done really well, and it's great that Tracy acknowledges she may not know, but she is connecting to the right people. And I know that it's important for Rural Advisory to see it, because it happens in the rural area. And it's something that's actually really passionate for me, that we as a city can celebrate. We have over 10,000 square feet of storage. We are going to be able, what they do every week, Lionheart, as well as its partner, the number of people that get fed every week in our city, well, I don't know, it's in the thousands and thousands and thousands of meals. And so that's something that they also have an economic plan with it. So great. I don't want to speak forever. And I had no idea about Ruth Nordegraff being part of this down the road. And I don't know how they restructure. I should know that, but I don't know that. And I celebrate that. She's an excellent director. I wanted to move to the next thing you talked about, rural tourism. I think that's good. I think that you're working closely with those people. I mentioned already the open farms harvest. I'm going to get to know that more too, but I celebrate what's happening there, because it's the synergy behind much of everything happening here. And I think the cookbook's a great idea, but the bike event, I just want to throw it out there. Behind my house in Glen Burnie is the bike club too. I could get them to be a place where you could begin or something like that. It's a phenomenal group of people. I've been members there for a long time. What do you call it? MTB, right, Allison? Do you know that club at all? Do you know the people?
Yeah, not a member, but
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I sneak back there, but I am a member. I've been family members from the beginning, but it is something cool too. But if it was the bike event would be kind of a cool thing to pursue. As soon as I heard it, I said yes right away, because I love to do that when I am able to, but also it's the trail, and however you want to put that together, I'd love to be a little bit part of that if you wanted some support on. All right. Sorry for talking so much, Madam Chair, but it is all important stuff. And I just want to inspire everyone to, if you have questions or encouragement, to be able to speak. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Straw. Further questions on any of the items within Tracy's report, please? Yes, Chair recognizes Charles. Go ahead.
So pertaining to training these new farmers, I'd be very interested, Tracy, I realize they're all training, but do they actually want to be farmers, or they just want to know how to grow in a vegetable garden? Or are they all 100% wanting to actually work on a farm? And the reason I'm asking that is because about every 2 weeks, somebody phones me up. How do I get employees to be engaged in the fact that the crops grow whether you're on holiday or not? And how do I get a dedicated workforce to come and work at my farm? And that's where that question is coming from. It's a huge problem, and it's one of the biggest things I think holding small farmers back, to try and find employees with skills who are willing to work 6 days a week, some cases 7, rain or shine, no matter what. We seem to have struggled to find Canadians who want to do that. So we bring in foreign workers. We were actually just at a farmer Labor Day thing back in Manotick, and there was about 100 Mexican and Dominican Republic and Honduras people there. And it was a real eye opener. And yes, they're larger farms, but it just shows you we are totally 100% committed to these people coming to work here, because we can't find enough people from Canada to do this kind of work to make us sustainable. So I don't know if you can answer the first question or not, but is that possible?
Yeah, so happy to talk to you about that and to the group. So I'm just looking at my notes. So the community training firm, as I've mentioned, so last year was a pilot, an absolute, let's see if this even can fly. This year, we received grant funding again through the Skills Development Fund for a second year with the understanding. So we had to change or grow the program for them to fund us the second year. So the growth and change of the program was really building out a business plan that I'm just looking at this point to start for the fall winter, to look at a longer revenue sustainable model. There are many ways, there's many things that as part of that. So the current program, the Skills Development Fund, limits us, and not in a bad way, but we're limited in terms of who we can have trained. So and that's okay. And we're receiving phenomenal money to help see if this is an actual opportunity in the program. We are finding people jobs. The challenge with any rural community is transportation. So getting people to those jobs and to the farms without a bus. And I've worked with farms in Lennox-Hampton County who had the same problems. My goal with the business plan, with the longer term program, is to open it up to everybody, which may change then some of the options in terms of that more dedicated, longer term employee that you're talking about. The other piece that I've been looking into, and actually funny, it was not funny, it's coincidental. I was at this Eastern Ontario Economic Development Conference last week in Ottawa, and the group from the Toronto Business Development Center were talking about farming and agriculture and lack of farms and lack of employment for farmers, lack of succession planning options, all the same things that I'm talking about. And I've actually reached out to them. They are actually doing a mission to the Netherlands to recruit Dutch farmers as investors to Eastern Ontario. Again, just one piece of many pieces of the pie, but one of my employees, so I oversee workforce development for the city of Kingston, and one of my staff members about 3 or 4 weeks ago, she and I were talking about how the Netherlands through the EU are being squeezed and told that they have to actually close their larger farms because of the emission component, and that they're not part of regulation. And it's a massive problem in the Netherlands if you've been following it. And I said to her, like just off the cuff 3-4 weeks ago, oh my gosh, like we need to somehow figure out how to get there and talk to these farmers about, we have farms here with possible succession plans, new employment opportunities that could really use their skills, their dedication, their loyalty, their commitment. And then we see this introduction and this presentation last week at the event that talks to Toronto actually starting to do this. So I think that there's many things that I can help support, of obviously looking for your feedback and your, like all the ideas that you have and all of you have in terms of the farming piece. But I think we have some opportunities in terms of the business plan to look at what is it that we need over the next few years. What can I do to help support those needs, those gaps, those opportunities over the next few years? And the idea is that if we support it with a community training farm, and when I say community training firm, we're calling it that through the Skills Development Fund program, but an agricultural training hub, what are those needs that you have in the farming and agricultural community? in all of those sectors, whether it's crop, livestock, or both, and greenhouses and all vertical farming and regenerative farming and everything else. That's what I'm working on. I don't know if that answered your question, Charlie. A little bit. I'm working on it.
I'm just very concerned that am I allowed to speak, Allison?
Absolutely.
I'm very concerned that maybe we're not targeting the proper type of person that's needed on a lot of these farms. And I just don't know how to go about it any different than what we've done. We had to source, obviously, not from this country, so foreign workers. And I don't like doing that. I don't like the idea that somebody has to come and work here for either 2 years or 8 months at a time. They're away from their family. But I have a dedicated workforce that come with huge skills that I can't even begin to know what each man who works for us has. They blow me out of my mind every day when I hear of different things they can do. And I know I can't get that in Canada, and not for the same dollars. And it doesn't seem to matter how many dollars we spend per hour on an employee if he's a Canadian compared, and I shouldn't say they, to a foreign worker. And I just can't justify it. I can't make that kind of money in return in the products we sell. It's a very complicated place we're in. It's difficult. The succession plan is just, it seems like a small part of it compared to just the production of the product that we're trying to produce with the limited manpower that is available to us.
And the choices, yeah, and the choices that you can make as a farmer, right? And what you can offer. If I may.
Well, so we'll go back to the development fund, and which I can't even begin to partake in because of my location, and that the city of Kingston can't actually look after agriculture with the development fund. And that's a huge conundrum. If I wanted to look into putting in a commercial kitchen, which we've thought about many times, that's not even available to us. And so we've asked this question before. I think John brought it up about 2 or 3 years ago. And it was a pretty valid question. I don't know, are we still looking into that? Or is that just going to fade away in the dust? Because I think
you're talking about something like Two Rivers, didn't Smith Falls?
No. Well, okay, we tried that. That didn't work very well. No, so say if I wanted to develop something new on my farm, but I needed, to help to look into how I would go about that. And we've done it. We had to go to Cornwall to get money, not our local agency that should look after us. Those monies or ability to go to our development fund doesn't exist because we're not in Frontenac County. We're in the city of Kingston. The city of Kingston doesn't have those monies available to us.
No, we're strapped, especially through OMAPRA, with the population base being over 100,000. And I'm still working on that, trying to make that change, just so you know. The other piece, Allison, the other piece is that surprisingly, we have had a really incredible uptake this year for the community training farm from high school students in grade 12, from rural high schools who aren't sure if they're ready for college or university, but live in rural communities. And so we actually have students from grade 12 that are participating in the community training farm that could also be potential employees as well. We're seeing some good results in that respect, so that helping them decide, hey, agriculture could be your future instead of maybe going to university or college for something else. So I think there's larger discussions to be had, absolutely, and I'm still working on the OMAFRA problem as well. It's always in the background that I'm working on to try to change that. And also still work really closely with the Community Futures Office, with the Frontenac Business Support Office through Ann Pritchard, and trying to change the her map of who she can support as well from the feds.
Thank you.
Thanks. If I could just, to that point, are you able to share, you mentioned that 4 participants in the report, at least the written part, have found jobs. Can you share with the Rural Advisory Committee, what are those jobs? Just, there's a lot of discussion, but let's bring it down into something that we can see. And so what are those jobs that 4 people have found employment in?
Yeah, so let me confirm that with you. I know that there's 4 that have found jobs already. I've been told by the training partner that that's the case. From a privacy standpoint, we just have to be careful, but I'm happy to email you and let you know what those 4 jobs were in the ag sector. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, I will definitely tell you that for sure.
Because it could be food, it's services, it could be equipment, it could be any of those service tertiary, not necessarily on a farm. And that's all great because they're all part and parcel of the agri-food business. Okay, further questions for Tracy on any of the points she brought up on her report? Yes, Councillor Amos.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. A couple of points I wanted to talk about in regards to the community training farm. Just a lot of my family is down in southern Ontario. So Charlie, I know, or Charles, I know what you're referencing. I was recently through Kingsville and the Chatham-Kent area, and it's all migrant workers, 100%. So they're suffering the same fate of what Eastern Ontario is going through, and it's large farming communities as well. So it's a conundrum all across the province of trying to find skilled Canadian workers to come into that. So my comment is, and I think I asked this before, but is there a placement component to that training program? Like, do we have farms lined up in Frontenac County or City of Kingston where these students can do a 1-week, 4-week placement and get hands-on experience from an actual operating farm?
So there is discussion as part of, so we have to adhere to some of the policies in regards to the fund itself, but that is an option that we can offer to the participants and the students. The challenge is, and I haven't reached out to Charles Foreman and some of the other firms yet, because the program goes until March, though we can find employment at any point and placement any point in beforehand, is a lot of these people are working part-time jobs to pay their bills. So a lot of the participants are working part-time to pay their rent, to pay for their food, and to have a placement, the placements to help them and support their life and their families needs to be paid. And that's a huge problem. So we're having, and again, I haven't spoken to Charles Foreman or Allison about this in terms of their ag spot in our communities. But a lot of the farms, from my previous experience, have declined paying for placement as they feel it's an education piece. So we just have to make sure if we do offer placement, which we would be happy to do, that there is some sort of payment option to support them, because they have jobs as well and they have bills to pay.
So I'm going to circle back to the Samsung farm, or the Samsung funding that we get. And we have a nest egg sitting there. It's accumulating interest. In my viewpoint, if we want to sink investment into our Canadian farmers and farms, then why can't we take some of that and plant it as seed money as payment for the individuals? So you want a 4-week placement, a competitive living wage, 4 weeks, whether it's Charles's farm or another farm, or Allison's greenhouse, anything along those lines. I think that's a very strong investment for us to consider, and I would like to see this committee perhaps go down that road. That was the other point I wanted to talk about, is that fund keeps getting bigger and we're just sitting on it. And I know you talked about having a working group. I appreciate that. Working group takes time, and we're probably looking at another 6 months to a year, potentially of formulating a game plan and then making recommendations. And then there's another $92,000 that are put in there.
Yeah.
So I would like to speed the process up somehow, some way,
Okay.
where in the spring of next year, so the winter months are going by, but in the spring of next year, there is seed money set aside for workers who want to have a 4-week placement, invaluable experience.
Oh my gosh.
A farmer like Charles can observe someone for 4 weeks and then have a tap on the shoulder to say, you know what, you've got skills, I want to keep you on. but those are my frustration's a little high because I see a large amount of money sitting there and we're not doing anything with it. So that's my 2 cents on that. Sorry.
Councillor Amos, oh my gosh, absolutely. So as a councillor, I'm going to need your direction to help me move that forward, but happy to support you in whatever you need to make that happen. Absolutely.
So I'm going to look at the clerks, plural. We've got 2 of them here tonight. And if we can draft some sort of motion for the December meeting, pulling on the Samsung farm or Samsung solar farm account to set up a bursary of some kind for X number of workers at a competitive wage for a 4-week placement. And then Tracy has the marching orders to set up the placements in this over the winter months. And then our students have placements in the spring when it's prime season to get training aspects into our farms.
Go ahead. Yes.
Hear you. I was just communicating with Derek and we will work on this after the meeting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Amos. Thank you.
Yep.
So could I clarify what we're talking about here? And I'd like to see some nods or at least some other response or reaction from the other committee members. Is this in the form of a motion that this committee will take, will formulate, and a motion that will be presented at the December 4th meeting that is the way that this committee can influence or capture the attention of council? Is that correct? Yes, Councillor Stroff. I recognize you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think something might be able to work there. It's probably a little bit complicated, but I think that between now and we can do a draft motion anyways, I can certainly see why this could work. I mean, it would be a long shot if members of this committee could utilize that. I think that there's there's pecuniary interest, so I know that, but if it's, as long as it's shared amongst the entire rural community, then I think it's possible. Yes, there's all kinds of ways when it comes to these funds of how you use that. One of the frustrating parts of the solar fund is that it was very narrow on its launch, and so we would have to get council to support that. And I would like to see it fleshed out a little bit. I think the core idea is good, and I just think that we need to, and that's kind of Tracy's department too. What are the wages? What's the gap? I know this in electrical. Okay, I get so much per hour for an apprentice for the first 9 weeks or something. There's all kinds of ways, so you can model it after other success stories. I'm not sure if there's others like this, Councillor Amos. I think it's a very unique opportunity that we have because it is a fund, and you don't sneeze at 100,000. It's that's good money to bring life to this, because it is challenging to for farmers to be able to afford this. But if this can breathe life and we can see the benefits of employment and also skills development, wow, that's what it's all about. So I do see that. So I just think that between now and December, I keep thinking it's monthly meetings. I don't know, Madam Chair, how that would work, but I just think it just needs a little more work to make sure it's there.
Yeah, Tracy, I'm to you.
So I'm happy to pull together some statistics. Obviously, Charles, work with you and there are other farmers in the region to talk about what does that living wage look like for 4 weeks? What would be the compensation? Are there other examples in other communities that are doing something similar? What does, a placement program typically pay? What would help support those communities? What about transportation? I'm happy to look at all of those pieces to prepare better for when we do decide to put this motion together, if that helps.
Beautiful.
Great. Okay. This is, I love to see action on this whole, because this was mentioned in the minutes of our June 5th meeting when Councillor Amos expressed, let's move along with getting this money, doing something. But to that point as well, if I could just ask a point of clarification with respect to the Samsung Community Benefit Fund. Excellent job on the getting the amount of engagement we did manage to get as far as people commenting how they wanted to see that money spent. and this is something that, you know, we're talking about taking it in a certain direction. How does that mesh with the responses that were received? If you review the report that you shared with us and you talked about a working group, how is that all going to, I don't want to have the Rural Advisory Committee, you know, move on something without, you know, and I'm not looking to belabor it, but just to be sensitive to, or, you know, food was certainly mentioned a lot in that report as far as how in various ways, shapes and forms.
So I literally just received the results last week and have not had a chance to sit down as a group, like, and look at the results, look at the themes. They tried to break it down into themes, but I think it could be done a lot closer. I'm going to need a little bit of time to do that, and I'm happy to look over that the next few weeks and send some thoughts in that regard. I'm not sure what you would want. I still
Well,
need
I
to
think what Councillor Amos and we're talking about is, you know, to support, put some money, some teeth behind supporting a placement program using some of these funds. You know, look at the results of the public engagement as far as how people who actually sent in responses, how they want to see the Samsung Community Development Fund spent, and, you know, make some, like, bring it together. So you've got that, got that piece of public engagement to support the motion we would like to get put forward to council.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
Thanks. Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Amos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I got sidetracked. My apologies. A couple other comments I had in regards to Tracy's report, which is outstanding, by the way. It's very informative, and I appreciate that. And I brought this up at the last meeting in June, and it's the Open Farms Harvest event. And I know you've expanded it to 150. Are there funds set aside for individuals that are economically challenged that may want to participate in something like this?
Yes. So we have tickets put aside, as many as we need, to offer for free to participate, to people who can afford it. The challenge, and I spoke to communications department about this, if we publicize that, we will get,
it's a Pandora's box. I know
it will be just, and you know, respectfully, it will be crazy. So if we get calls of any individual, any resident, anybody that is interested in attending but cannot afford it, we have tickets put aside that we're covering to offer them for free.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
The other comment I had was the rural cookbook.
Mhm.
How do I delicately say this? There are a lot of cookbooks out there. There's a ton, and I just don't know if we want to have staff spend time pursuing a cookbook that is celebrating our rural aspects. I get that, but where I work at the Seniors Association, we do a book sale every year. At that book sale, we get tons and tons of cookbooks. So that's the viewpoint I'm looking at is, my goodness, do we want Tracy spending X number of hours chasing down, trying to create a cookbook that is rurally focused? I get it. It's a good feel-good gesture. But I think this is my viewpoint. I'm not speaking on anyone else's behalf. I just think that could be wasting valuable staff time and going down that. And
all good. It's in discussions. I understand.
Yeah. Okay. And the bike event, I think, is a fantastic idea, and I'll leave it at that. I know that rural or Tourism Kingston in their report they put out to council a couple days ago, there was a couple of bike events that came through. One was the Ottawa to Kingston event where they had over 1,000 riders. So some sort of link with Tourism Kingston, I think, would be a benefit. They have some expertise on staff that I think could help. So.
And I work closely with Tourism Kingston on everything that we do. I just had a meeting this afternoon with them on some things. So yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from, yes, Charles, you go ahead.
So I'm very interested in this subsidizing your students to come to the farm. I don't think that's necessary in my case anyway. If somebody's willing to come to the farm to work, I would accept them and be more than willing to pay them. But take it a step back. You have the class. I think you would find, in my case anyway, I would be more than willing to go and participate in that class for a day and just to find out, are there some eager beavers in the class? I'd also be willing to help teach. I think that's how they're going to get placement. I don't want somebody just to come to my farm. They may not want to be at that kind of a farm. But if you go to the class, and I've done that kind of thing before, and I think that's the way I would like to engage people. I've never had anybody come to my farm and not get paid for their work. I find that strange that we're thinking that could be an avenue to go down. Maybe I'm out of touch, but that's my feeling on it.
Well, I am grateful, Charles Foreman and Allison Shannon, for what you do in your field and everybody at the table tonight. And you're at the table tonight because you're an exception, honestly. So please know that that's not the norm in the communities. And when I have, over my past 15 years, worked with agriculture, many businesses are looking to get paid. And just because they have a business to run. And so it's hard. They have a business to run. So it's not that they're asking a lot, they just have a business to run. So you are absolutely, all of you, the exception to the rule. And I'm so grateful to have you on this committee, but that's not always the case out there, unfortunately.
But so going back to, is there a way we can get engaged with this group of people? Even if none of them come to my farm, I still want to see a few more people who are wanting to farm or work at a farm.
Yes. So one of my phone calls tomorrow will be to our community training farm coordinators and letting them know that you would love to come and just have a chat with them on farm one day, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Okay, anything else? Yes, Jacqueline, I recognize you. Great.
Thank you. Thank you again, Ms. Snow, for the update. I have a question about the rural perspectives. I know there was, I'm sorry if I missed it, but there was a focus group that was supposed to be planned for the summer and it was canceled. I was just looking at the website. So it says registration is closed for the website, but then for the focus group, but then it says the focus group is canceled. So just wondering if there's any other updates on that.
Of course, absolutely. So there was a focus group already set. We had everything in play, and then my father passed away. So I couldn't do it. And so I had to cancel and take care of his affairs for a couple of weeks. And so that's why it was canceled. It was just my father had passed.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's all good. That's why. That was the only reason. So we haven't rescheduled it yet. We're trying to get a feel for what's happening just through the Get Involved participation to see if we're getting any responses. And we're planning to have an actual another event in November.
Thanks for clarifying.
No problem.
Yes, and on behalf of all of us, our sincere sympathies. It's a busy time, Tracy, and you have this on top of everything else lost. So we're very sorry for this profound loss in your family.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions right now for Tracy?
Just one smallish thing.
Absolutely, go ahead. Yes.
There's been some talk about a cookbook, and I know there's some varying perspectives about it, but I just had thought about Indigenous. I know this is the Rural Advisory Committee, but I wondered if having, I don't know, Indigenous traditional from the land kind of recipes or teas or something has ever been a conversation or something just to tuck away for another time.
No, good idea. And when the Heritage Department approached me about a rural cookbook, that was actually in the conversation as well. Again, we're just in discussions. I told them I would bring it to the table tonight. And we're just looking at if it's even a possibility, but no, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions under the briefing section for Tracy on her report? Okay, so that means we can slide into the business, which is the report that I believe was just presented on 7A, the Rural Economic and Community Development Report Q3. Tracy just presented it. The difference between briefings and business, and please correct me, Clerk O'Connor, if I'm incorrect, is that briefings are made and only members of the committee are allowed to ask questions. Then items reports are given under the business section, and that is an opportunity for more discussion to ensue. But also at that time, members of the public are allowed to ask questions. And I say this simply because it's a little confusing to me, and for our newer members of the committee, it's just this is how the meetings are run. So I just want to confirm that the Q3 2023 update was just the report we heard from Tracy. Are there further questions or anything that this committee wishes to bring up on that, unless I'm missing anything? And please confirm, Tracy, if I've misunderstood anything. But
No.
Okay, good. Any further
Okay.
questions? And can I confirm, are there any members of the public here or have signed on to this call at this time?
Through you, Madam Chair, there are no members of the public present at this time.
Okay. So we're going to, therefore, yes, Charles, go ahead, please.
I wanted to ask the question earlier, but I forgot. So in the fund, the Samsung fund, have we allotted, or has the city allotted for money to do the cleanup at the end? Because I noticed that was in the responses or the questions that you were asked. That was in about halfway along. And I thought, jeepers, I'm sure somebody must have had money set aside for that, and who knows what that's going to cost. Do you know, Tracy, if that's the case? Or
That is such an incredible question. I have not seen anything in the reports that I've reviewed from the past 10, 15 years, but I will look into that. I'm sure there's something in the reporting in the contract that states that, but I will confirm that. Good point.
Thank you. Anything else that someone has thought of that might like to question at this point in time? Now's the opportunity before we move on. Okay, thank you. Not seeing any more. We're going to move on to item 7B, and it's the committee mandate review. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Derek O'Shea.
Excellent. Thank you, Allison, and good evening, members of the committee. I just want to give a quick overview of the report, and then I'm happy to receive any feedback and answer any questions. So what we're looking before you today is staff have been asked to review the mandates of all city committees. And as part of that, I wanted to reach out to the Rural Advisory Committee because what we were proposing is a fairly substantive change, but I think will help the committee's functioning in the long term. So the first major portion would be moving the committee from being an advisory committee of council to a working group. And what this would, I guess, entail in terms of the benefits are, it would allow for the committee to have a more flexible meeting style. This is both in terms of rules of procedure, and that you would be freed from a lot of the more strict rules of procedure that the committee currently has, more flexibility to meet without having to worry about quorum requirements, or also be able to more easily bring in outside groups and agencies from the city to have sort of free-flowing open discussions. And I think that's another key aspect is right now the committee is somewhat restricted by the nature of the discussion, sort of the question answer presentation back and forth. And from my understanding over the last several meetings, there is a desire to move to a more open discussion base as opposed to the more formal parliamentary style of meeting. Additionally, there would also be an ability to discuss issues that may arise at the meeting that are not formally part of the agenda, which again, under an advisory committee, you are required for openness and transparency to sort of stick to what is on the agenda. A working group, you'd have some more freedom there. I think an important thing to note is this by no means would limit the role of the committee. I think it would actually help to elevate it in accomplishing more work. The committee is at sort of a unique juncture now in that Tracy has been, and her position as the Rural Economic Development Manager has been with the city for almost 2 years now, whereas leading up to the creation of that position, there was no dedicated staff person to rural issues in Kingston. So I think having that can allow for a more free-flowing discussions for a working group. Also, there would still be the ability for council to remain in the know on the activities of the working group, as there would be a requirement for an annual report to go to council on the activities. In addition, anytime something needed to be formally passed, staff can bring a report to council, but first consulting with the working group. I think also important to note that a working group would allow for greater public participation in meetings as well. There would still be a requirement for meetings to be known about, publicly published, perhaps shared on the city website or other mechanisms, but they would still be very much open to the public. So that is the first portion of the report, and quickly I'll talk about the second portion, which concerns the mandate itself. So the current mandate of the committee was attached to the report. Staff is proposing to delete some items from the mandate that are not really within the actual powers of the committee, or let alone the municipality, dealing with things such as hunting, firearm, use of private land. Those are all legislated in other areas or other levels of government. We'd be looking to add recognition for the committee or the working group. It would be in the role with the Samsung Solar Farm Fund disbursement, as well as providing feedback on the rural Kingston economic strategy. So with that, I welcome any feedback on what has been proposed there. What are your thoughts, in addition to anything you think should be included as part of the mandate for the committee moving forward? Thank you, Allison.
Thanks so much, Derek. Okay, interesting changes being proposed here, and I open the floor for some robust discussion and lots of questions. Who's going to start us off? Go ahead, Councillor Oosterhoff.
All right, it's a very small screen now. I've shrunk it down to see what I got to do. Yeah, thanks for this, Derek, Councillor Clerk. Thank you for that. Been looking forward to hearing this. And now I'm not sure I heard enough, but I just wanted to, I was nervous at first hearing this. I want to be honest with you, because now that in the legacy of the past of this committee, this has probably, I believe, Derek, if I'm right, that we looked at this before, and it was not supported, and we fought to get it back. Not me, I think it was before my time, so it might be 10 years ago. So, but anyways, even as I pondered it, and over the weekend, I had some discussions with about this, and I do think that there might be some benefits to this. Though what I wanted to ask Derek is, if we were to transition to working group, is again, you're going to make sure as staff that the other important matters, like roads, for example, okay, that is a critical issue that we as a rural have the list, and that we have some, that I have some input. So I obviously roads, and that we don't often hear about the hunting or the firearms, but every now and then we do, and we have some things to handle like that. There are just issues that are completely rural and that are, the urban doesn't know what we have to deal with. So I guess I want to make sure, how do we catch them and manage them well? That's on my mind, and make sure that they don't get lost, and roads and getting, so we will still get reports from the city is the question, because I do really enjoy those reports, because it allows us to interact, right, and to have that, and maybe it's only roads, I don't know, but when I bring up my concerns in the addition to the business, we're going to talk about things that impact the rural area differently than the urban area. So that's on my mind. I can be quiet there, Madam Chair, or I can just ask about so what is included and what is excluded, and maybe will for the next meeting, if there's a consensus that we might be able to move forward, will you produce that list and how things look differently, I guess. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right.
Go ahead, Derek.
Thank you,
There's
Allison.
a few questions in there, so.
I think I can work my way through it. So
Okay.
Understanding that there's a lot of different issues that affect the rural community. So the working group would have more freedom to deal with these matters in an open way. You would have the dedicated staff person in the rural economic development manager, which in this case is Tracy. She would be able to bring in staff to speak as well and make that request. It's very similar to an existing working group called the Climate Leadership Working Group and its function. So you would still have that ability. It would actually, I think you would see staff more willing to come, because they would not need to produce formal reports such as the ones that are coming to you, but they would still be able to share information. So you would have that sort of increased flexibility. And an important thing to note is that the working group would still have council representation, both specifically from the countryside district representative as well as one additional councillor. So by still having those council voices, you would also have a voice with those councillors at council. So representatives would be able to, you know, bring things forward via motions at council, which is a sort of a more direct route than going through a committee, waiting and spending its time going up to council. So as for next steps, which I think was the last one, is depending on the feedback that's received here, the plan is to bring a report to council by the end of Q4 2023 with an updated committee bylaw, which would include any changes. So I'm curious to see what the rest of the discussion will be tonight. So if we receive, you know, quite a bit of commentary that this is not a preferred approach, staff will go back to the drawing board. But if there's a consensus that this is a good approach, you may just see things proceeding to council in the next couple of months. I hope I've been able to answer your questions.
Yes, and through you, Madam Chair, just last comment. Thank you, Derek, for that. And I know that you have a good handle on this. I want to say you have all my respect for that. I would say that I'm interested in this because I would like this committee to achieve more and and that's not criticism. I just want us to make sure we have, I would like us to, again, with Tracy on board, we have more substance capability. And so that's really, really good. So unlike past years, if it's a decade ago, where it was, it felt disrespectful in a sense to the rural area. And we might get those questions again. We're going to say, but I'll let more people involved now. But I just want to say that I'm quite curious about this, and maybe in a positive way, because I want the very best possibilities. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to open the floor for more questions for Derek, please. Yes, Councillor Ramos, and then to you, Charles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. Clerk O'Shea, how hard is it to, for whatever reason down the road, we would want to go back to an advisory committee? How hard is it? Is it a monumental effort to switch back again if it was required or needed?
Happy to answer that. Simply put, no, it would not be a monumental effort. It would just involve a staff report. The committee bylaw would have all of the processes, so it would just be a matter of amending the mandate to say, okay, no longer a working group, you are now back to being an advisory committee, and you will follow these rules instead of this set of rules. Okay.
And then a quick follow-up question in regards to recruitment for the working group instead of the committee. Is it still the same process that we currently do?
That is correct. It would follow the same process whereby the city clerk's department would request and gather applications, and then the city's nominations committee would make recommendations to council. So still a public recruitment process.
Okay, thank you.
Charles.
So that was the one question I was going to ask. Could we revert back if we go to this forum? But I also think it's a great idea if it's going to be better. Same idea as Councillor Oosterhoff. I think anything we can do to improve what we do, to improve the quality of life in our rural area, absolutely. Sign me up.
Thank you.
That's it.
Yes, go ahead, Derek.
I just want to quickly add a bit of a history lesson for people here. Councillor Oosterhoff had mentioned that in the past, the committee was disbanded. So that was actually back in 2010 when a new committee bylaw was struck. The committee was eliminated with no replacement. And then it took a motion from council about 6 months later to recreate the Rural Advisory Committee, which is in its current form. So I think that's the key thing to note, is that this recommendation is by no means to eliminate the committee, but to transition it to a new format that we hope will allow for a more effective discussion and more effective work to happen for the committee.
Thank you. Excellent point of clarification, and history is important too. Further questions? Yes, I recognize you, Jacqueline.
Thanks, Derek. Two questions about the change of the terms of appointment, why they're being reduced, and also the 2 points about deleting. You mentioned it a little bit about the deleting transportation and utility corridors and deleting municipal economic strategies, but I'm just wondering if you could just provide a little bit more context to those two, the terms and the two deletions.
Certainly. So I'm going to answer your second question first about the deletion. So utility and transportation corridors, we believe this was a holdover from the past when there are certain committee members who had a particular passion for allowing public use of unopened road allowances and transportation corridors. That seemed like an extremely finite item to be included in a mandate. So by no means would the new working group be precluded from discussing it. We just felt staff that it was not something that deserved such a prominent point in the mandate. Additionally, about rural economic or municipal economic strategies, we are now replacing that with a focus on the specific document, which is the Rural Kingston Economic Strategy. So there's actually a specific document as opposed to a more generic term. So that is the reason for those. Regarding the terms of appointment, the city has a public appointment policy, which was created, I believe, 2 years ago. And that standard sets that people are appointed for 2-year terms, followed by 2 years to a maximum of 4. This is to ensure that we get turnover in the committee and not having the same members constantly on, but also allowing flexibility, because we do often on committees that are appointed for a full term of council get people resigning partway through. So this just allows for more efficiency in appointments. So people are available to apply even after their 4-year maximum limit, and it is up to the nominations committee if they would like to appoint people for an extra term, maybe because of continuity processes. So I hope I was able to answer your questions.
Yes, thank you very
Great.
much.
Thank you for those questions, Jacqueline. Yeah, I recognize you, Tracy.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure this out. Okay, back on. Derek, I have a few questions, just that I think may also help the group. Maximum number of members in a committee that's not committee to council. Is there a difference between the number of members of the group and in either form?
Nope, there's no maximum number of members, although we do find increasing membership often makes it difficult if it gets to be too large to a standpoint.
Okay, and then how do we make sure, so from my point of view, and I love the flexibility piece, but how do we make sure from the city level and from my point of view that we have enough council representation? That's really important for me to have representation.
Well, I can pretty much guarantee you that Councillor Oosterhoff will be a part of any type of working group or committee going forward. So we've created a specific position for the Countryside District because it does represent the rural area of Kingston. Acknowledging there are other areas of Kingston that have a rural area to it, or perhaps councillors with a personal passion, Councillor Amos, for example. That's why there would be 2 guaranteed positions on it. However, as a working group, much like this committee, any member of council is free to attend.
Okay. And then the reason I'm saying that is because it's really, really important from my point of view, and I think for the committee, that we have the capability to create motions to go to council. I think that's really, really important for us to make a difference and to have decisions made through the system, that we have the ability to have motions created to council. And then the next piece, the only last question I have is, so regard to agendas and minutes, does the clerk office still get involved in agendas and minutes, or is that the responsibility of a staff member?
So I'll answer your second question first. Those details are still to be worked out, but can be taken on a case-by-case basis. That's more of an operational aspect. With regards to motions, so working groups do not bring motions before council. However, what can happen is the activities of the working group can be brought to council via staff report. So that is how that voice would be maintained, and that is the opportunity presented here because there is a dedicated staff member for the rural field. I'll put it that way, no pun intended.
And if it means anything, I was literally just hired permanently as of yesterday. So I am now a permanent position with the city of Kingston. So there you go. You have me for a long time.
Congratulations. if I could jump in and just reinforce Tracy's point, I mean, this is my second term serving on this committee, and I have found I've struggled many times trying to figure out what exactly I personally am doing, because I find it very rigid and on lots of rules, and sometimes I find there's too many opportunities where, well, we can't do that because that's the way the committee is set up. So I welcome the fact that there's been some thought into trying to loosen that up and provide some flexibility. Because yes, I do get concerned when our little committee, which only meets 4 times a year, can't make quorum sometimes. Why is that? And maybe it's because, maybe sometimes we may feel that we're not able to make much of a difference. And to that point, I think it is very, very important that if this does change from an advisory committee to a working group, we have to have a very clear and easy to understand way how we can influence council, because it's not that very easy right now. There's certain things we've brought to council or not, and case in point, we're going to draft a motion to have ready 3 months down the road in December to get it to council to talk about setting aside money from the Samsung Community Development Fund to get to council, and then we're going to hope that council will move that forward. There's just so much time that goes by, and I appreciate that, but we cannot lose that route for whatever. I mean, there's a lot of good things that can come with opening this up, including your point saying that, well, staff may be more inclined to come and attend these meetings if they don't have to present a formal report. I'm all for that. Let's have an open discussion and really share something, but we need to make sure we're not losing that ability to properly influence council. It may be great for all of us, but if council isn't going to recognize a working group or what we're doing at the end of the day, we've shot ourselves in the foot. Councillor Stroff.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just to your point, and Clerk O'Shea can confirm that, but on something like any motion that we have sense of priority on, as soon as staff gives us some substance and some shape to that, you have the right to call a quick meeting. And for something, even I think for a motion, I think it might be that important if we want to have success and time. You're right, things take a long time. So Clerk O'Shea, is that correct? We could have a meeting, just a call to a quick meeting.
Yes, so the committee as it's currently structured does have the ability to call special meetings if there are items of pressing nature, but to Allison's earlier points, there is still definitely that conduit to council, and you will have an ability to act faster, I believe, under this working group system. And again, I feel like a broken record here, but I will reiterate, you do have a direct line to council as well, with 2 council members sitting on this committee as well. So that's, I think, sometimes gets bogged down in the fact that an advisory committee exists more to provide advice rather than direct action. So, but your best methods for direct action, regardless of your form, are your council members, and then having a staff member who can bring things directly to council via a report as well.
Okay. Yes, thanks. Thank you very much. Any other questions? To the point of next steps, could you reiterate again, is this something that it sounds like you'd like to, or staff would like to move fairly quickly on? Can you just reiterate that for the purpose of the group here tonight, please, Derek?
Yeah, so based on the discussions here, it sounds like there's a rough consensus that I will say that there's not any strong objection to what has been proposed in the information report, especially with the caveat that if it is determined the working group is not achieving the desires of the membership, that it can go back to being an advisory committee. With that, the next step would be staff will be bringing a report to council by the end of Q4. We're currently targeting November with recommended changes to the bylaw that would sort of reconstruct or reconstitute the committee. We would not be sort of making that an immediate impact, but you'd likely see that happening for 2024. So to put it bluntly, this is not the last meeting of the committee in its current structure, but that is the current plan.
Thank you. How many, you mentioned the climate working group. Are there other working groups that the committee utilizes right now that are active?
So through you, other question or other committees depends on the committee itself. So for example, the Arts Advisory Committee of Kingston has 4 separate working groups that report directly to that committee and then up through council. The Climate Leadership Working Group is sort of a unique one in that it reports directly to a staff member, the Climate Leadership Division manager, and then the manager position brings information forward to council directly. So that is sort of the model we are basing it off of. And I can tell you that climate leadership is very much front and center at council, and that sufficient attention is paid to the work of that working group.
Thank you. I recognize you, Tracy. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so interesting that you said about the subgroups. So that's a really big question as well. So if we have subgroups for specific projects that need further attention, will that still be able to lead up to the new committee form? Does that make sense? Like, are we allowed to have, you said that other groups have subgroups, like, is that still a possibility to have working groups under the working group? I know that sounds silly, but is that possible?
Yeah, you would be able to structure your own working groups, or whatever you want to call them, project teams, small teams, whatever name you choose. There would be that would be up to individual staff and the working group itself versus now. So for example, there's a lot of discussion about creating a working group related to the Samsung solar farm. There is actually a mechanism and process under the committee bylaw that needs to be followed for the creation of that. So it's not as simple as just 4 people volunteering and saying they'd be on it. That is more of a formalized process under the current format right now, but that would not be the case under the proposed working group format.
Okay, well, that was my answer. Okay, so, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for that clarification. Yes. I'm looking to you, Eric. I want to make sure you've been quiet, but making sure these discussions are friendly and favorable to you. Do you have anything you wish to add? Can't hear you, Eric. We can't hear you. I'm sorry. It's good? Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Okay. Well, that's great. Thumbs up. Okay. If you do get your sound, certainly just let us know if you'd like to say anything. So is that fair to say, looking around my screen, that we do have some consensus that this is something positive, that it's palatable at least to this committee, that we could transition towards a working group with the understanding that if it's not working, we can go back to the advisory committee structure. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, is that what you're looking for, Derek?
I was looking for honesty and the truth, and I think we've accomplished that. So I'm very happy to hear that. Just happens to align with what I had proposed. Well done. Well done. I look forward to something a little bit more flexible, a little bit more open, and it might mean more people from just outside, not committee members, but public engagement coming to these meetings. And that includes being flexible on locations too, if that's something that's important to people to get them to attend. Okay, thank you. If there's nothing else under item 7B, the committee mandate review at this time, I'm looking one last time. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 8, any motions? Clerk O'Connor.
Through you, Madam Chair, there are no motions.
Thank you. Notices of motions, carrying on.
Through you, Madam Chair, there are no notices of motions.
Okay, agenda item number 10, other business. At the beginning of the meeting, Councillor Oosterhoff has 2 items he wishes to bring up, and this is the time at which to bring it up. We're not, go ahead. There's no discussion. It's a point of information. As I understand, we're not able to ask questions, but it's a point of information. And anyhow, go ahead, Councillor Oosterhoff.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And so the 2 topics I have for information for this committee tonight, where I hope that we might be able to have it on the agenda and for our clerk's consideration for December the 5th. And they really do fall under rural economics and impact on our residential and our business community. I would say both. And I'm not alarmed, but I am concerned, and I am engaged with Utilities Kingston on the rural water fees that are coming for 2024. Rural water is municipal water that is trucked in by professional haulers, I think 6 different companies, and significant amounts of water are required for the rural area. And Councillor Amos can help me, but I think after the budget was presented and approved, it was brought to our attention that we might have overlooked the cost increases that in good faith that Utilities Kingston presented for water. And I just think it's important that we know, because it is a big deal for the rural area, not just pools, but cisterns and ways of life for farms that need access to water. There's going to be a likely negotiations are going to have, not negotiations, but I don't think we can negotiate. We are going to be given the facts very clearly in next month. I have a meeting, and I might be asking for Tracy to join in, because I feel there's going to be an impact on, I think, Allison, you worded it well today when I called you about this. This is an economic, well, not in this topic, on the next one, but it is a real impact on our rural area. I think that sometimes urban interpretation is that anything can happen here, but this is a serious issue. So the haulers are concerned, and they are, the good news is council supported my motion to defer, and with that stopped the intended increase, and so really we're talking hundreds and thousands of dollars for families and tens of thousands of dollars for businesses. So that is something that they would have to work into their customer base and to plan for. So we want to solve that fairly quickly. So that's important to know, and hopefully we will know clearer December 5th. And we can ask Derek if that's something that we are allowed to discuss here. I would think even under Tracy's file, we should be able to do that, but you can tell us after. The other one that everyone knows very much about, that maybe I'm getting considerable alarming concerns from my constituents, is related to the Bell Fiber copper theft and the loss of high-speed internet. I believe it's in thousands and thousands of customers and many, many hundreds of businesses. And so that, again, you can only manage how that stress that is for families and for businesses. And I just want to say that I am engaged. I just got another with Kingston Police. I stopped today on the way, Allison, after I saw you briefly, and the Bell trucks were there. They were very engaging. And yeah, we don't know the half of the difficulty they are having. Okay, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of lines, and I was corrected. He brought me right to the cable. The cable coming out of Kingston is still copper. They do have glass. Everybody knows that fiber optic is glass, but they are doing the connections on tiny, tiny copper. So it is no fun for them. So what is being stolen is actually copper. He told me it is, but it's very, it's large, but it's not large copper like, my electrical industry, we have large copper. It's not like that. It's very tiny. So, but what I wanted to maybe seek advice, and you guys can call me at different times, is I wanted this treated, I said to the police, as something, police have, this is not fun and games no more. This is not a fallen tree on a line and we say we will get going. This is criminal activity. And I did get their attention today, and I thought I had it before. But this is very, very important that we solve this very quickly, because we're talking significant financial losses and heaven forbid, healthcare issues, and people can't get phone calls and that, and our well-being as a community. So I'm on it, but I've been on it all along. But now that it's dropped this weekend, again, I was away, and then I got called, and my wife called me, of course, and it dropped, and I made some calls, and sure enough, they cut. What they literally do is they go from Battersea Road and the police go there and they run over to Perth Road. They were just chasing each other between roads. And that's how fast they do it. So it's ridiculous, beyond ridiculous. It's not even, so I wanted you to know that we may, I don't know when and if we can get more information, because on a day-by-day basis, it has to be resolved. But I would like to be the police involved. But most of all, I wanted to say I think the bell workers were doing their best, and in working in insane circumstances of whack-a-mole sort of, trying to solve it here and it pops up over there. So and this is impossible. This is a costing them a lot of money too, and I'm a bit exasperated, but I will continue on it, and hopefully the police are able to manage it. And it's your update for tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thanks very much. And as mentioned, there's no opportunity for discussion. Appreciate the point of information. It's important, and yes, it's an issue that you're following up with Kingston Police Services. There is council representation on Kingston Police Services Board through Mayor Patterson as a representative, and Councillor Hassan, I believe, is also. But as far as an opportunity, it's a point of information tonight, perhaps something of an update, an agenda item for a future meeting. But very important for everyone to be aware of this profound impact it's having on the communities north of the 401.
Thank you.
All right, on agenda item number 11, any correspondences? Have we received any? Clerk O'Connor?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, we have not received any correspondence.
Okay, that takes us to the date of our next meeting. The next meeting is scheduled of the Rural Advisory Committee for December 4th at 6 p.m. Hopefully that suits everybody. I do have a question. Is that one virtual or in person?
Through you, Madam Chair, that one will be virtual as well.
Thank you. Virtual. And so that's your point of information, and hopefully mark it on your calendar so you can attend. Looks like that's it. And motion for adjournment. So moved by Charles Foreman. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending. It's really important. There's some important changes coming ahead. Some exciting ones, I think, and positives. So that's great. Everybody have a good night. If you haven't had supper.
Through you, Madam Chair, we'll just need a vote on the adjournment.
Oh, do we need to? Okay, let's
Yeah.
all vote. That's right. All in favor. Thank